So, honorable members of parliaments, dear experts, distinguished guests, dear friends and partners, I'm pleased to welcome you to this online seminar on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. This event is co-organized by the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and OSCE's Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, known to all of you as ODIHR. My name is Saša Gavrić, and I'm ODIHR's advisor on gender issues, and today I will be your moderator. I'm joined today as well by my dear colleague, Anastasia Griadasova, Program Officer at the International Secretariat of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, who will help to facilitate the open debate later. Dear Anastasia, thank you a lot for being my co-moderator. In 2025, the OSCE participating states, together with the rest of the globe, are marking the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, a central set of international norms on women's rights and gender equality. In our gender equality jargon, we used to say that the CEDAW Convention is the global law for gender equality, and the Beijing Platform for Action is our action plan for gender equality globally. We are using this event today to reflect on the last 30 years, on how the OSCE space has seen a far-reaching development when it comes to women's full and equal participation in politics and decision-making. Later on, you will hear a little bit more from our dear speakers on the key developments. Unfortunately, immediately at the opening, I have also to say that we are in the recent years facing also stagnation. Stagnation in the progress. We are facing gender equality backsliding, and we are also seeing the unprecedented mobilization against gender equality. As we approach the 30th anniversary of the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and the Platform for Action, there is really a new sense for a real urgency, for a renewed commitment by democratic institutions, including, of course, national parliaments, to the gender equality advancement. This is why the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and ODIHR are today co-organizing this online seminar. The event has three goals. We want to raise awareness on the importance of the Beijing Platform for Action, even in today's context. Secondly, we want to share lessons learned and good practices among national parliaments related to the parliamentary actions on the implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action. And thirdly, we want to call upon OSCE national parliaments to ensure renewed focus on gender equality during 2025. Dear participants, we have prepared hopefully a nice program for you today. We will start with welcoming remarks by dear Pia Kauma of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, the President of the Assembly, and Maria Telalian, our newly appointed ODIHR Director. After the opening remarks, we will then immediately move into the working part that will include three keynotes by me and two more guests from our dear partners from UN Women and the Inter-parliamentary Union. We are looking forward especially to the lively debate that will follow, hearing about your contributions, and all parliamentarians present in the room are kindly invited to present concrete examples of good practices and lessons learned on how they are ensuring parliamentary follow-up related to the Beijing Platform for Action, but maybe also on plans that relate to the marking of the 30th anniversary during 2025. At the end and after the lively debate, we will close with concluding remarks by the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly Special Representative, our dear Hedy Fry, and ODIHR's Julia Netesova. Both of them are today with us as well. Before we move into the agenda, allow me just a few technical announcements. As you have seen, this event is being recorded. and the recording will be posted on the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly's YouTube channel so that it can be also followed and accessed by those that might not have had the time to join today. Requests to speak should be written in the Zoom chat. My dear colleague Anastasia Griadasova from the OSCPA Secretariat will collect those requests, and she will then give you the floor during the interactive debate that will follow. To ensure a smooth experience, all of you are kindly invited to mute your microphones when not speaking. And finally, once again, I would like to encourage you to keep your cameras on during the entire event, as this is also an opportunity to see each other and virtually meet each other. Without further delay, it is my pleasure to give the floor to the President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, Honorable Pia Kauma. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Saša. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is my great honor to welcome you to this joint seminar and welcome also Mrs. Maria Telalian, the newly appointed ODIHR Director. Wonderful to meet you here online and hopefully very soon also in person. This is the first event of the new year, marking the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. 30 years have passed since the Beijing Platform for Action was adopted, and while we have seen remarkable progress, the challenges that remain ahead are undeniable. We have witnessed a significant increase in women's representation in parliaments, tripling to an average of 31.5%. We have seen transformative gender equality laws come into force across the OSCE region. Yet, despite these strides, we are facing a troubling reality. Progress has slowed, and in some countries, we see worrying signs of regression and democracy backsliding. This is an alarming rise in opposition to gender equality, which serves as a stark reminder that our work is far from over. This seminar, organized by the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, is more than just an event. It's yet another call to action. It's a moment to reaffirm our commitment to the Beijing Platform for Action and to recognize that gender equality isn't just a goal. It's an urgent necessity for the health and progress of our societies. As we revisit the 12 critical areas of concern outlined in the Beijing Platform, we will explore how these issues continue to shape our legislative and societal landscapes. Today, we will continue sharing experiences, best practices, and lessons learned from parliaments across our region, all with the aim of building on the progress we have made and addressing the challenges that persist. But let's be clear, this is about more than just discussion. It's about action. Our mission is to inspire national parliaments to renew their commitment to gender equality and to push for tangible progress in 2025. This isn't just a matter of fairness. It's about creating sustainable democracies and fostering economic growth. Gender equality is the foundation upon which more just and prosperous societies are built. As parliamentarians, we have a unique responsibility. We are the bridge between policy and practice, the ones who can translate the principles of the Beijing Platform into real, impactful change. Through our collective efforts, we can ensure a future where every person, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to thrive. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to our keynote speakers for sharing their invaluable insights and expertise with us today. I would like to encourage members of parliament to take active part in the debate. Your voices are essential in guiding our path forward. As we stand at this crossroads, let's work together to create a reality where gender equality is not just an aspiration, but a reality for us all. Thank you.
Thank you a lot for the introductory words and the encouragement, President Kauma. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to give the floor to ODIHR Director, Maria Telalian. Dear Director, the floor is yours. Director, I think you're muted. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah, it's not okay?
Yes, wonderful.
Thank you, Saša. And I thank President Kauma for her statement and for her warm words of congratulations to me. And I also look forward to meeting you in person at the soonest. Dear members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, dear partners from Inter-parliamentary Union and UN Women, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this important online seminar. It is a privilege to address you today and reflect on the advancement of gender equality and the rights of women and girls in our region. I would like to extend my gratitude to the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly for co-organizing this event and to all the parliamentarians, parliamentary staff, and the representatives from across the OSCE region who have joined us. As I begin my mandate as ODIHR Director, allow me to stress how important advancing gender equality is and will continue to be in line with our OSCE commitments. This belief will surely guide my efforts during my tenure as Director, as I'm determined to further expand the already impressive work of ODIHR that ODIHR has done in this area. In 1995, the Beijing Platform for Action emerged as a call for change, articulating a bold vision for achieving gender equality across 12 critical areas of concern, ranging from poverty and education to health, violence, and political representation. 3 decades later, the principles enshrined in this platform remain as relevant and compelling as ever. Today, we gather to honor this legacy, to celebrate the progress achieved, and to confront the challenges that persist in our shared journey toward gender equality. Over the last 30 years, we have seen remarkable achievements in the OSCE region. The average number of female parliamentarians has tripled, reaching 31.6% at the end of 2024. Groundbreaking gender equality laws have been enacted and robust governmental institutional mechanisms have been established to advance gender equality policy. 26 OSCE participating states have adopted legislative gender quotas, demonstrating a tangible commitment to increasing women's representation in decision-making. These milestones are a testament to the collective effort of governments, civil society, and crucially, parliaments. Yet, we cannot afford to rest on our achievements. Despite these gains, progress has slowed in recent years. In some cases, we are witnessing troubling backsliding in gender equality and unprecedented pushbacks against women's rights. The urgency of renewing our commitment to gender equality has never been greater. And indeed, parliaments and its members have a critical role to play in this endeavor. Parliaments are uniquely positioned to drive legislative, budgetary, and oversight actions that can advance gender equality. They are platforms for ensuring that diverse voices are heard and that gender considerations are integrated into all aspects of policymaking. Today's seminar provides a valuable opportunity to explore how parliaments can build on the lessons of the past 3 decades and set the stage for transformative action in 2025 and beyond. As we embark on these discussions, let us learn from each other. Each parliament represented here today brings unique experiences, innovations, and challenges to the table. By sharing good practices and lessons learned, we can collectively strengthen our efforts and accelerate progress. The year 2025 represents a significant opportunity, a moment to recommit to the ideals of the Beijing Platform for Action and to spur renewed momentum for gender equality, and is a chance for parliaments to lead by example. ODIHR, in line with its unique mandate from the 2004 Ministerial Council decision on the OSCE Gender Action Plan and the 2009 Ministerial decision on women's political participation, is engaging every year with multiple parliaments, supporting them with awareness raising and capacity building trainings, review workshops, but also gender audits and parliamentary gender equality action plans. Later on, you will hear more on our offer, but let me now only highlight that we continue to stay at your disposal. Please use this seminar as an invitation to reach out to us. In closing, I wish to urge all of us to do more together in advancing gender equality. Through close cooperation, we have achieved a lot in recent years, but much more remains to be done. Thank you, and I wish you all a productive and inspiring discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Director, for the strong and encouraging words. Once again, a big thank you to you and President Kauma. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we are now immediately moving into the 3 keynote inputs, which hopefully will inspire the discussion and your further plans for this year. The first guest on the agenda is dear Rachel Weston Eschenbacher, regional policy specialist based at the UN Women Europe and Central Asia Regional Office in Istanbul. Rachel is a true expert and a dear friend of ODIHR. We are pleased to have her today with us, but she's also a former parliamentarian herself, so she understands our business in the most appropriate way, hopefully. Dear Rachel, we are pleased to have you. I wish you a warm welcome once again, and the floor is yours for your introductory keynote. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, Saša, for the warm introduction.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 second with the presentation. There we go. Dear honorable members of Parliament, representatives, experts, partners, it's a privilege to be able to address you here today. In 2025, the global community will mark the 30th anniversary of the 4th World Conference on Women and the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which is widely considered the blueprint for the achievement of gender equality, and 10 years of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its Sustainable Development Goals. In 1995, at the 4th World Conference on Women, which was attended by 17,000 delegates from around the globe, leaders from 189 countries adopted the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Today, it remains the world's most widely endorsed and visionary agenda for women's rights. History shifted with the introduction of a comprehensive, actionable agreement to achieve equal rights for women and girls in every society. This year, Beijing Plus 30 is a landmark moment for member states to review their commitments on gender equality and women's rights and assess progress made in the implementation of the declaration. It's also an important opportunity to look carefully at hard-won gains and ensure that they are not reversed. The Beijing Declaration has 12 areas of critical concern in the platform. They cover all areas of life, but primarily those requiring the most urgent action to deliver gender equality for women and men in all of their diversity. The plan includes numerous proposed actions in these 12 critical areas, including specific commitments to put gender equality in every national policy, budget, and plan, to create institutions dedicated to gender equality, to guarantee an equal footing for women in the economy, to take comprehensive measures to eliminate violence against women, to apply gender quotas to correct gaps in political leadership, and to tackle the unique challenges of girls and young women. On this occasion of the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women will, from the 10th to the 21st of March of this year, will undertake a review and appraisal of progress made in implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The ambitious roadmap, which was developed during Beijing, is more valuable than ever. Gender equality is also among the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and it's the single best way to achieve progress across every goal, from ending poverty to improving health to tackling climate action. When countries act on the platform's 12 areas of concern, they see the benefits. For example, those that have passed laws to stop domestic violence have on average cut rates nearly in half. However, yet not a single country in the world has fully achieved gender equality. As the Beijing Declaration is turning 30, we have the chance to take stock and to re-energize our efforts towards that full achievement of gender equality. To do that, UN Women is calling for action in 3 key areas to accelerate progress and achieve equality. These are driving focused change on the ground, backing power for the people, and making the multilateral system the most powerful force for equality that it can be. We do know much of what we need to do. UN Women is proposing 6 priority areas for action we believe offer some of the best return on investments of energy and resources. These areas cover what we have learned works best, both from our own programs and those of our partners, from women's rights organizations and other actors over the course of the last 30 years. Delegates who were there in Beijing in 1995 would have recognized some of these areas. Others have emerged since then. They are to accelerate gender parity in national and local governments by applying temporary special measures to rapidly increase women's shares of decision-making positions, to adopt and fund national action plans to end violence against women, to center women and girls in a global just transition to green economies, to bridge the digital gender gap, to transform the care economy to support women's economic empowerment, and to drive accountability for the women, peace, and security agenda. In preparation for the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, UN member states have agreed that the outcome of the review and appraisal of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action on the occasion of this 30th anniversary should be a political declaration. This political declaration will be to be adopted at the Commission's opening meeting on Monday, 10th of March. Ahead of the Beijing Plus 30 meeting that will be taking place in March of this year, UN Women compiled a report on the progress on decision-making in the 56 states in the UN ECE region. This roughly overlaps with many of the OSCE participating states. Let me share some of those data points with you. We see here that the glass ceiling in political spheres is still very present in many countries in the region, with women being underrepresented in the highest echelons of power, with minimal progress observed since the last Beijing review in 2019. As of July 2024, in total, women currently serve as heads of states or government in 14 UN ECE countries. This figure remaining the same as in the previous Beijing review in 2019. We also see that women's representation in parliaments of the region is continuously increasing, though the rate of progress is slowing down. Today, women make up an average of 31.6% parliamentarians in the single or lower houses of the 56 ECE countries, in comparison with 27.8% at the last review in 2019 and 11% in 1995. However, a number of countries in the region remain stagnant, with levels of women's representation in parliament below 20% since the previous review period, and significant regression was observed in 12 member states. In terms of proportion of elected seats held by women in local government, women hold an average of 34.1% seats as of 2023, in comparison with 28.7% in 2019. Women's representation as mayors is lower, with data indicating that women make up around 17% of mayors in 37 European countries in 2023. We do see that there's been progress observed in terms of women rising to ministerial posts. As of January 1st, 2024, there's an average of 28.8% women serving as cabinet members in the region. This figure is still on the rise, but it's still well below parity. As you see, women are far short from the substantive equality, influence, and power. Even when progress is recorded, glass ceilings persist. Women remain significantly underrepresented in the highest echelons of power in political and public life, as well as in the security, judicial, and economic spheres. The UN Women Regional Review for this region also identified other trends. We identified violence against women in politics as being one of the most pervasive barriers to women's political rights today. It targets women leaders with the intent to silence their voices in the public space. And we see that the frequent targeting of women in public and political roles to violence, particularly online, is undermining their rightful representation, voice, and agency. This violence is often fueled by the politics of polarization, and the gender backlash affects not only politicians, but also journalists, activists. This threatens democratic integrity. We also see that harmful social norms are another trend. While the region in general is characterized by a high level of de jure equality between women and men, harmful social norms and practices continue to deliver de facto inequality, preventing women's equal access to power. Progress in the region is also being increasingly challenged by a pushback to women's political participation, leadership, and activism. Civic space is shrinking in the region, and recently passed laws in some countries restrict the activities of women's organizations, repress politicians, women journalists, and human rights defenders. Increasingly, the value of gender equality is being questioned. So, how can the parliaments of the OSCE engage in this area? First off, participating states can enable the adoption of a bold and forward-looking political declaration at the CSW 69, which is adopted by consensus. The political declaration should be high level and set out accelerating actions for change. It should serve as an opportunity for member states to recommit, finance, and be accountable to the commitments and goals of the Beijing Platform for Action and the need to seize the opportunities and accelerate efforts to overcome persistent challenges to gender equality, rights of women and girls, and their empowerment. Also, as noted earlier, parliaments are uniquely positioned to drive legislative change. Parliaments of the OSCE participating states can unlock further political will and financing to advance results at scale on gender equality at the national level, while also committing to invest on women and girls as the smartest pathway to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. 30 years ago, people from every part of the world committed to achieving gender equality. They showed that we can agree on the imperative of equality and a roadmap to get there. In 2025, it can happen again. With a plan in place, it only remains for us to fully act on it. We have the opportunity to deliver at last on the overdue promises of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. It's in our hands to achieve an equal world where all voices are heard, all rights are respected, and all people can enjoy equal opportunity. Let us join together with national parliaments to achieve this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel, for this fantastic presentation, for the reminder on the Beijing Platform for the action, but also for the forward-looking words when it comes to the proposals that UN Women has made when it comes to the upcoming Commission on the Status of Women but also the proposals that you have highlighted to our dear parliamentarians. We will be now moving into the second keynote presentation, and now another dear friend of ODIHR will be speaking, Zeina Hilal. Many of you will know Zeina. Zeina is a really a cornerstone of the Inter-parliamentary Union's gender equality work. She has been a driving force behind a lot of the work related to the global gender-sensitive parliaments agenda. Zeina, acting as a manager of the team that leads on gender equality and youth programming in the Secretariat of the IPU in Geneva. Dear Zeina, we are pleased to have you as well today with us. We wish you a warm welcome from ODIHR's and OSCE side, and we invite you to deliver your keynote.
Thank you very much, Saša, for your kind words. I feel humbled, and thank you for the moderation and the invitation for this great event. I will share my screen to go over a presentation with the distinguished guests and participants. Hello to each and every one of you. I'm very pleased to join you on this meeting from Geneva, where the Inter-parliamentary Union has its headquarters. A few words about the IPU, which is the International Organization of Parliaments. We're very pleased to have 181 member parliament in our organization, which is a immense potential to first of all bring parliaments together, but also for interparliamentary cooperation, solidarity, and mobilization. The OSCE is an IPU observer, as is UN Women as well. So I'm here with the family, and thank you for having me. Indeed, as pointed out by all of you in your remarks, 2025 is a special year for gender equality. It is offering us many opportunities to revive commitments and to work further towards gender equality, women's rights, women's freedoms, and women's empowerment. Internationally, of course, we're marking the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the 30th anniversary. There's also the anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda of the International Conference on Population and Development. The Sustainable Development Goals still have 5 years to go from 2025, and a great milestone was achieved end of 2024 and is going to definitely inspire our action in 2025. And this is the UN CEDAW Committee General Recommendation number 40, which offers us all a new, bold and strong framework for parity in decision making. It is also a special context because of a wealth of global challenges. Unfortunately, some of those challenges are emerging, and some of those challenges are persisting, actually. We are seeing, as mentioned by Rachel a few minutes ago, a smaller progress in the proportions of women in parliament. Rachel talked about the region, but we see the same stagnation globally across the world. We are also suffering from the disproportionate effects of conflicts and wars, and the effects that these are having on women's rights and empowerment and safety and justice, etc. We're very worried by rollbacks on reproductive health rights and justice in too many parts of the world. Reversals are being moved or tried on banned female genital mutilations, on child marriage as well. We're seeing a slowdown of gender equality related policy reforms, which is also very worrying. We're also witnessing, unfortunately, some attempts to reduce the scope and the strength of laws and policies to combat violence against women and girls. And we're seeing a much stronger movements, more organized and more financed, to support pushbacks on gender equality and women's rights. And this is extremely worrying, because even if the goodwill is there to push back on these pushbacks, the great support that anti-rights movements are gathering is becoming extremely dangerous. We have all witnessed, sadly, this week's and last week's decisions and commitments to reduce moderation on social media platforms that have been taken by several giant social media networks. And this is, of course, is not going in the right direction for the protection of women and girls from violence, harassment, misinformation, deepfakes, etc., that they are facing online more and more. We've been very worried by electoral narratives against women's rights and against equality, especially strong in 2024. However, we do have the big privilege and opportunity to have strong basis for action in 2025 and beyond. First and foremost, by mobilizing IPU frameworks to which parliaments of the world have committed and have agreed to advance. And these include policy guidance on women in politics and in parliament, on making parliaments more gender-sensitive institutions, and on eliminating violence against women and discrimination. We do have a wealth of gender equality related resolutions that we will not fail reminding parliaments on, and working with them to advance their implementation. We also have some declarations like the Kigali Declaration, which has recommitted parliaments in 2022 to become more gender-sensitive institutions, in addition to strategic objective and internal policies. It's important that organizations like ours implement what they preach first and foremost. So at the IPU, we do have quotas for women's political participation and their leadership in our organization. We also will use 2025 to mobilize the parliamentary communities towards action, as called by the previous speakers. And we will contribute a parliamentary perspective into international milestones, deliberations, taking stock exercises, etc. Rachel, you raised the very important Commission on the Status of Women meeting in New York in March. Of course, the IPU will gather parliaments jointly with UN Women to make sure that this extremely important step in marking Beijing +30 and learning from what has happened so far be used and serve parliaments. The IPU will also have a series of global political platforms in 2025 that will be used to mobilize the parliamentary community. Please do not hesitate to let us know if we can work together to take advantage of these global political platforms, such as the Conference of Speakers of Parliament, global conference, and a Summit of Women Speakers of Parliament. Of course, we have strong and numerous partnerships, including with UN Women and OSCE, ODIHR, and others that will also serve to work together and mobilize parliaments and help their action and their commitment. All of this led the IPU to decide to have as a theme of priority for its work in 2025 be gender equality. So that's why, we are confident that there will be many opportunities for parliaments, their members, to work together and support gender equality further. The main areas of focus and concern that we have pinpointed as we take stock of, the 30 years since Beijing and where we should look at are very much in line, of course, and for the best with the points raised a few minutes ago by Rachel. This means that we are working in the same direction, which is very good news. So, of course, we're focusing our action, but also our attention on women in parliament, on eliminating discrimination, helping parliaments be gender sensitive, and combating sexism, harassment, and violence against women in politics, and in particular in parliaments. This year is serving two purposes. Of course, we're all taking stock of what has happened, where we stand. Parliaments are doing it, governments are doing it, and we as well are supporting these efforts. In terms of women's political participation in parliament globally, I wanted just to share with you a few progress. The proportion of women in parliament stands at 26.9% today. It is a progress, yes, compared to 1995, when it was 11.3%. It's also a progress compared to the previous year, with an increase by 6.4 percentage point. However, this increase is lower than the previous years, when it was a 1 percentage point increase, and then a 0.6 percentage point increase, and last year it was 0.4 percentage point increase. I can tell you that for the super election year of 2024, things are not looking great, and actually we are also confirming this stagnation, unfortunately. So the super election year of 2024 did not serve gender equality and women's political participation and leadership very well, and this is really sad because we had a very good opportunity to do so. Of course, measures to address and redress the situation exist. They are very well known. Quotas, of course, Rachel mentioned that. I'm not going to repeat, but we're seeing every year that the countries that have quotas are having more women parliamentarians than those that don't have quotas or don't use them. And again, we do have a new framework now to go beyond all of that and target parity. We've seen also advancement towards more gender-sensitive parliaments. In 2024, 65 parliaments, up from 45, announced having taken reforms. You have the list. The reforms included new legislation to promote gender equality, but also measures to advance equal representation of men and women, and to increase parliamentary leadership positions in parliament for women. Other reforms included the enhancement of gender mainstreaming mechanisms and capacities inside parliaments, and I have listed a few examples if you wish to be inspired to take similar actions. We're very, very concerned by the proportions of violence against women in parliament. It is a key obstacle to equality in politics and definitely a priority to address. The magnitude is huge. Psychological violence touches 80% of women parliamentarians surveyed in Africa. The proportions go even higher when Europe is concerned, and worldwide as well. And you can see here the figures for sexual violence, physical violence, and economic violence. Bottom line is it's happening everywhere. It's happening even more during elections and even more during parliamentary leadership positions, distributions internally. We're also sharing with you here a point of great concern. We are witnessing too many women quitting politics, and this shows how much harassment, violence, and the pressure and sometimes misinformation targeting women unfortunately are leading to the result that they were seeking from the start, which is to close the door of politics in front of women. This is unacceptable and should be raised as a key point of concern for our joint work in 2025. We've seen some progress in gender-responsive legal reforms, thanks to research from the World Bank. So definitely things have advanced. If we compare 2019 with 2024, we can see that 120 reforms in laws enhancing gender equality, in laws and policies enhancing gender equality were adopted. However, the global pace of reforms dropped in 2022. And although we do see some recent reforms, including some we have had the opportunity to support in several countries, such as the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act in Sierra Leone, some social security measures in Namibia, and bills related to electoral offense and the protection of women from electoral offense in Tanzania, and a law on sexual violence crimes in Indonesia. So these are recent legal reforms enacted, and I've included those also to inspire further action in these areas. Last point of great concern is the pushback, and we need to be pushing back against the pushback. It is a priority. Global mobilization is on. You can all count on us. IPU, OSCE, UN Women, and others have been on the forefront in 2024 to resist and support pushback on the pushback, especially in the Gambia, which was a great story of success, where mobilization by several international organizations and parliamentarians locally and regionally have allowed to stop a trial to cancel a ban on female genital mutilation that exists in the country. So this did not pass. The Gambian parliament took the right decision. But we learned a lot from what global mobilization and regional mobilization and local level mobilization can do. And so let's be ready in 2025 to work all together to stop any attempts to reduce sexual reproductive health and rights, to go back on violence against women, or to go back to harmful practices. This cannot happen in such an important year and beyond such an important year. I'll stop here with the hope that my presentation was useful, and I stay with you in case you would have any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dear Zeina, thank you a lot for the fascinating presentation, for this very important reminder on the key anniversaries that are in a way happening parallel with the Beijing anniversary this year, reminding us on the positive developments when it comes to the commitments and the standard setting, reminding everyone on the important developments in the in the IPU when it comes to your continuous setting of norms and standards around the gender-sensitive parliaments and agenda, but also providing us, unfortunately, with an overview that complements Rachel's contribution on the worrying trends that we are all seeing when it comes to the pushback and the negative developments in our region. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me one last input from my side, and then we will be handing over to Anastasia for your comments, questions, and of course for your input when it comes to the updates from the different OSCE states. So I have prepared a few slides for us as well. I will be sharing them. My input in a way will be definitely partially overlapping, but hopefully also complementing the presentations of Rachel and Zeina. And let's immediately go into it. What I think in a way is important that we are being really reminded that today's gathering is in a way a reminder to our common goal that we all together work towards advancing women's representation and making sure that equal, meaningful participation of women will be further advanced in all institutions, parliaments, governments, and overall in democratic governance. But that we don't stop there, that we are also continuously are demanding better decisions, better policies, and better laws for the benefit of all women and men in all their diversity in our society. Zeina and Rachel have reminded us on the complementarity of the Beijing Platform for Action anniversary, together with the all other important elements for us as the OSCE family. Of course, our 1975 Helsinki Final Act anniversary this year is also a reminder and the call for our action. You have seen a lot of data. I will not be repeating it. You have seen that we have seen progress. We agree, all three of us as presenters, that progress was happening, that throughout the OSCE space, however we want to call it, North America, Europe, and Central Asia, we have been following the introduction of important legislation. But what we have also all three in a way highlighted is worrying developments when it comes to the stagnation that we are seeing in the growth. We, as you have seen, Zeina highlighted very important legal reforms. But unfortunately, last year we have not seen in the OSCE space any further new gender equality legislation happening. And we have also witnessed, as both of them before me highlighted, an increased mobilization against gender equality that has led in some cases even to withdrawing certain draft laws from parliamentary procedure, has impacted also very important legislative reforms, including the abolishment of certain gender quota provisions from legislation, and many other worrying trends. On the same side, in the same time, we have been nicely reminded that we have come to the conclusion that it is time that we continue with, as Zeina has said, with the pushback to the pushback. And one of those pushbacks has been the demand from the CEDAW Convention to look not anymore now for gender balance, but for gender parity in the institutions as our new common standard that we will be working towards. And of course, part of this is our common effort to use our existing strong commitments that we have within also the Beijing Platform action and all other commitments, including our OSCE commitments. With my input, I would like, in a way, to remind us that maybe this year is a year where we can try two things. One, maybe to innovate certain approaches to gender equality policy and gender equality advancement, and also to maybe use 2025 and the Beijing Platform for Action to try things differently. So we have been working all hard, all of you, all of us, in national governments, parliaments, and international organizations. But as we are facing these challenges, maybe the time has come that we aim for further innovation and to try things differently. One important message that we are highlighting, especially in the last few years, is that we should always be reminded that when talking about gender equality in politics, it is not about the so-called fix the women approach, because the issue is not with women's capacities, with women's limited skills, education to be part in politics, but it is about all the structural barriers that exist. And in that sense, we need to fix the institutions that prevent, the formal and informal institutions that prevent women from actively participating and providing the meaningful input together with men to the decision-making and policy-making process. And in line with the two goals that I have presented at the beginning, I would like also to put forward a few ideas. So when it comes to women's representation, one important topic that we have identified is really crucial is to consider maybe innovating our approaches and try things differently when it comes to the engagement of men politicians. We have been, over the last 3 decades, investing significantly into the emancipation of women, contributing to women's leadership, to their intention really to change the world. But very often we have in a way missed the opportunity to also remind to the other half of our societies to be really active allies and transformative actors. Change, as we know, does not happen on its own, and therefore we believe that maybe this year we as national parliaments, international organizations, political parties can try out new formats on engaging men and getting them on board really to be equal stakeholders in the gender equality advancement efforts. One important topic that we would also put forward is that sometimes when really working very hard for 3 decades on advancing gender equality in politics, we are stuck maybe in the little details of the advancements, and we are proposing that states should also consider maybe going a step back and conducting a form of gender analysis that we have called a national assessment on the state on gender equality in politics, looking really systematically, as in a way also Zeina has made in her presentation, on all the, in trying to identify all the different barriers that exist that maybe are preventing us in the further progress and are maybe not allowing us, so to say, to really go the next big move towards gender parity, but also towards better laws and better legislation. ODIHR has released last year a proposal of a national assessment methodology, and if that's of your interest, we would be very happy to work with you. Very important, as both of them, Rachel and Zeina, have highlighted, are legislative measures. We truly believe that gender quotas and different forms of temporary special measures can contribute to the further advancement. As you have seen, 26 states have introduced such instruments, and maybe this year could be a year where a commitment, an assessment could be conducted by the parliament on how those quotas are functioning. Maybe states could also take the decision through their parliaments, then based on the assessment to adjust the existing provisions based on the identified challenges, and in a way to allow further improvement with the legislative measures that we all together have. Very important, nevertheless, as we know, political parties are the secret gardens of politics. A lot of decisions are taking place there. So we would hope that parliaments might also serve as a regular platform to mobilize political parties and to remind them on their responsibility beyond the legal responsibility to really take action and to allow political parties to do their part of the story. So in 2025, we would call on parliaments to potentially really consider running one or multiple fora, webinars, seminars that would look into this issue. And lately, as our director and other speakers have said, we stay at your disposal to continue supporting you, but also, of course, the colleagues from the IPU and other stakeholders to support you around gender audits and gender action plans that are specifically done for the parliaments and within the parliaments. Last year, the IPU and ODIHR had a wonderful cooperation on conducting a gender audit of the National Assembly of Serbia, where we conducted, so to say, a second assessment after the IPU in 2019 has done the first self-assessment. And these two processes were complementing each other and will hopefully serve now the National Assembly to take their next steps. In 2025, we would also call upon parliaments to look, of course, into the process on how decisions, policies, and laws are made. The importance of gender equality laws has been highlighted multiple times, but what we have identified through our monitoring and work overall is that there's a huge space to conduct further reviews on the implementation of such legislation, a review that will be independently driven by the parliament, and to invest additional efforts in the scrutiny over the existing legislation. Sometimes the solution is not just to, work on adopting new legislation. Very often we see this as the easy solution, but maybe the efforts need to be put place on the post-legislative scrutiny from the parliamentary side. We hope that 25 will be also a year where further investment will be taking place into the governmental bodies that take the lead on gender equality policies. Usually, a lot of the OSCE states, unfortunately, have very small gender equality units, gender equality agencies, gender equality ministries that don't have enough human and financial resources to be the central hub in the governments for further advancement of gender mainstreaming and gender equality policies. And within that, we also hope that 25 might be a year where we would have a further recommitment to the use of gender mainstreaming tools. We are all aware of the important developments that have been taking in the last 30 years when it comes to gender impact assessment, gender responsive budgeting, when it comes to issues related to institutional or ministerial gender action plans. But a lot of those instruments are still in the majority of OSCE states on a voluntary basis. And we hope that by looking further into the application of gender mainstreaming tools, they can become obligatory for all decision and policy making in the OSCE space, including when working on new draft legislation as in a way your primary role as legislators. An important aspect when it comes to decision making and policies, they're very often looking into the impact that legislation and drafts will have on women. So maybe a way on how to innovate and do things differently is that to look this year also into the topic on the impact of gender stereotypes on men and boys and their well-being. There is a growing research that shows that patriarchal values, sexism, is also impacting the well-being of men when it comes to their health conditions, but also when it comes to behavior in traffic, when it comes to crime rates, and all other worrying trends that significantly and disproportionately also impact men's life in a very negative way. Just the last year, I've been reading important research from France and Germany, among others, calculating how many billions of euros societies are losing because of the harsh gender stereotypes and the impact of gender stereotypes on men's and boys' life in our society. By addressing these issues, we will, of course, indirectly and very often also directly impact the well-being of women and girls in our society. And lastly, let's don't forget, as it has been also highlighted by Rachel before me, let's don't forget about the diversity in our society, that women and men from diverse minority groups very often have very specific needs, that our policies and legislation are very often differently impacting them. And in that sense, to consider maybe 25 to be another year for a recommitment to not leave anyone behind. As our colleagues have presented, we have also very important tools that stay at your disposal. I'm just presenting some of them here, and we would be really pleased if the OSCE parliaments, through the OSCE delegations within each national parliament, would consider reaching out to us for potentially also partnering with UN Women and IPU, so that we can support you this year in your commitment to take the anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action as a year that will allow us for a renewed commitment towards gender equality. I will stop here. I thank you for all your attention. These three presentations have been quite lengthy, and we are now moving into the interactive part. Dear Anastasia, as announced and agreed, you will be taking over. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Saša. Thank you very much to all our excellent speakers for sharing your insights with all of us. After these inspiring and interesting presentations, I would suggest that we move straight to the parliamentary discussion. Dear all, I'm now opening the parliamentary debate and encourage our participants to actively engage by registering through the chat function. Our parliamentarians are encouraged to share concrete examples of good practices and lessons learned in implementing parliamentary follow-up activities related to the Beijing Platform for Action. You are also invited to outline your plans for upcoming activities in 2025 and pose brief questions to our brilliant speakers, dear Rachel, Zeina, and Saša, who will address them at the end of the debate. So far, we have 3 registered speakers, and I would like to give the floor to Dr. Daniela de Ridder. I would like to ask you kindly to limit your intervention to 5 minutes. Dr. de Ridder, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for this interesting presentation, and congratulations to Madam Telalian for your election as ODIHR director. I'm very happy that one of the first action that you take is this online conference on gender issues. Yes, I think reminding the Beijing conference 30 years ago, it's a very important day that we have to look at today. Because as we marked 30 years ago, the adoption of the Beijing Declaration as a platform for action, we are reminded that gender equality is not just an aspiration, as President Pia Kauma said, but it is still a necessity. And you raised out the point that there might be a huge risk that we are going back. So I will limit my intervention just to highlight maybe three topics to me seem to be very, very important. First of all, I think I like this idea that I've learned from my colleagues from the Canadian colleagues, mainly Hedy Fry and the colleagues from Sweden, that there are mainly three topics that we should keep in mind. First of all, the so-called 3R approach means that we have to focus on rights, on representation, and on resources. And as far as I listened to you and to your presentation, yes, the rights that we have to reclaim and to highlight are very often mentioned, but this means that we have to ensure that women and marginalized groups, and thank you, Saša, for mentioning that also the support of male colleagues is so important. I think we don't have to neglect this very important focus point. But also marginalized groups are very important. Look on the German situation, for instance. We have to face tough times now during our election campaign, and the risk that we have is when you see that there is an increasing support for the far right on the one hand and the far left on the other hand, that we are losing female candidates. And it's not only about members in the parliament, but it starts earlier with the rights, because, you know, they are so shocked what is going on, also with and this was mentioned as well, with the bad influence on the big tech platforms. You all have seen and heard about the influence of Elon Musk here in the German campaign. I think we have to face that and to see that we have a modernization of social communication. And in my view, I think we need more a solution to this. Secondly, it's about representation. So it starts with the candidates, but we have to start earlier, not only when we look on the representation of women and men and marginalized groups inside of the parliament, but I think representation starts with education in schools. So we need more workshops to make sure that students already know what democracy means. I think this is might be also a very interesting point that we often neglect. The involvement, the increasing of the participants and leadership of women and gender minorities is a political decision-making process. So let's keep that in mind, both in national governments and in international organizations like ours and yours as well. And we have to see that, because we have so much threats now to see how international conflicts have a huge influence on our national politics. So we have to see that there is a link between both. And finally, let me mention that I think it's quite important that we focus much more than we did in the past on the resources and on the financial support. I think this is so often neglected, because we see the huge difference between bigger parties who are supported by funding. And I think we all have seen that during the observation mission that in the US. It was very critical and very crucial. And I want to hear from your side from side of the expert. I think this is a very critical point because this has a huge influence on the participation. I remember that some of the candidates already gave up their campaign because they had no support or no sufficient financial support. So I think we have to talk about finance, about the economy, about resources as well. So this is my statement, but I have a lot of questions as well, and I hope that you can give me some answer. We are living in tough times, but we have to face the truth. And thank you to mentioning the topic of networking. and solidarity. I think this is mostly needed. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Ridder. It was very valuable to hear from you, your experience and your observations. Thank you very much. The next speaker on our list is Ms. Sevinç Fatalieva from Azerbaijan. Ms. Fatalieva, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to have a chance to share the information and reflect on the Azerbaijani progress in advancing gender equality and women empowerment. As we mark the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, it's both very important for all of us to have this kind of discussion. This journey, rooted in the core principles of equality, inclusiveness, justice, has been shaped by a commitment to meet international framework and national goals, addressing critical challenges and leveraging opportunities to empower women and girls. Azerbaijan recognizes that gender equality is not only a fundamental right, but also a precondition for sustainable development, peace, and prosperity. Our collective efforts in the direction are best demonstrated through targeted reforms, impactful policies, and innovative programs implemented over the years. I will share with you those processes that were going on just in the recent years. So Azerbaijan has strengthened its legislative framework to support gender equality and combat discrimination against women. The law on gender equality, which was adopted in 2006, serves as a cornerstone for ensuring equity across all spheres of public and private life. Also, we adopted 2 national action plans, one for the prevention of domestic violence, it's for 2020 and 2023, and another one combating trafficking in persons, 2020-2024. These documents lay the foundation for coordinated and systematic approaches to eliminate violence against women and girls. Also, amendments to the labor code and other employment laws have addressed workplace discrimination, introduced equal pay provisions, strengthened maternity protections, as well as ensure broader economic opportunities for women, active participation in the workforce. These reforms demonstrate Azerbaijan's commitment to fostering an equitable society where women and men enjoy equal rights and opportunities. Economic inclusion has been a key priority for Azerbaijan. The employment strategy for 2019-2030 aims to promote inclusive employment and reduce unemployment among women. Programs such as the self-employment program and internship grants have provided fundings and trainings to thousands of women, particularly in rural areas. Women resource centers established in 17 districts provide vocational training, financial literacy programs, and business advisory services. Initiatives such as Digital Girls and Cyber for Girls focus on equipping young women with IT skills, encouraging their participation in the digital economy. Investing in women's economic potential and support through soft laws, grants, and tax incentivizes for female entrepreneurs ensure their active participation in Azerbaijan's growing economy, and their vital role in driving sustainable development is being recognized. Also, we have to speak about education. Education is also the basis of gender equality, and Azerbaijan has made significant steps in this area. The support for young girls' education campaign has provided scholarship to girls from rural and disadvantaged backgrounds, ensuring access to modern education opportunities. Awareness campaigns and STEM initiatives, such as Girls in ICT Day, encourage young women to explore traditionally male-dominated fields like technology and engineering. Women are also being empowered to take on leadership positions. In recent years, Azerbaijan has increased women representation in decision-making positions, and including parliament in election which took place in 2024. About more than 20% of elected MPs are women, which represent a ruling party, a oppositional party, as well as our independent members. Also, we're on the eve of the municipality elections, and there is a great number of the candidates to this election, also women. And also other executive bodies are also, the number of women is growing in the executive bodies as well. We have to speak about violence against women, and this is also a central focus of Azerbaijan's gender equality agenda. We launched the first ever online referral portal for survivors on gender-based violence in 2020. The Care Call Center provides psychological and legal support to victims of domestic violence. Community outreach programs such as school-based awareness sessions address critical issues like early marriages and domestic violence. And between 2020 and 2023, 279 victims of human trafficking, primarily women, received rehabilitation and reintegration support. Such measures reflect a holistic approach to protecting women and ensuring their safety and dignity in society. Following Azerbaijan's liberation of territories previously occupied for nearly 3 decades, post-conflict rehabilitation has been a priority with a strong emphasis on gender inclusivity. Women play an integral role in demining efforts, ensuring the safe return of internally displaced persons. Post-conflict programs provide displaced women with vocational training, psychological support, and opportunities for reintegration into their communities. Gender assessment and trainings are integrated into reconstruction plan, ensuring that women's needs and perspective are prioritized in rebuilding efforts. Azerbaijan has taken an active role on the global stage to promote gender equality. As a member of non-aligned movement, Azerbaijan hosted international conference on women's empowerment, combating domestic violence. Also in 2022, Azerbaijan submitted its periodic report to the CEDAW, demonstrating transparency and commitment to international norms. As we commemorate 30 years of the Beijing Platform for Action, Azerbaijan stands committed to its principles. Our achievement in gender equality reflects a dedication to creating a more inclusive society where women and men work together as equal partners in building a prosperous future. Let us use this milestone as an opportunity to reaffirm our collective resolve and accelerate progress toward a world where every woman and girl can realize her full potential. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fatalieva, for your contribution and for legislative updates from Azerbaijan. The next speaker on our list is Ms. Irina Gerashenko from Ukraine. Ms. Gerashenko, please, you have the floor.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for your very interesting discussion, and thank you for remark of our German colleagues to our election company. It's very, very interesting, and now we observe the situation in your country. Unfortunately, the war defines the life of Ukrainian women in all spheres today. Yesterday, Ukraine endured another massive attack, leaving millions without electricity. In the first 3 days of the new year, the Russian army launched over 300 attacks drones and around 20 missiles, including ballistic ones against Ukraine cities and villages. Now, 68,000 our women serve in the armed forces of Ukraine, with 5,000 on the front line. Most paramedics are also women. In my political party alone, 108 women are currently serving. We are enduring heavy losses in his war and hope for increased support for our armed forces. The war influences our problem. We have adopted a law that allows the use of biological material from fallen soldiers' spouse to conceive a child. Ukraine now is facing a severe demographic crisis, which will be our priority challenge in the post-war period. unfortunately, the war triggered aggression and new problem. Over the past year, cases of domestic violence have risen by 80%. Our society suffers from post-traumatic stress syndrome, and we must strengthen psychological rehabilitation for those affected by the war. Ukrainian population has decreased to 35 million, with 6 million people becoming refugees. And now Ukraine has established a Ministry of Unity to address reintegration issue. Our birth rate is critically low, just 6 children per 1,000 people. I think women must be involved in peacekeeping process. I think it's very, very important, and together can we achieve lasting peace process in Europe. And thank you very much, dear colleague, to your support our country, and now for our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gerashenko, for joining our seminar. Unfortunately, the next speaker, Mr. Kyriakos Hadjiani, is not able to speak at the moment because he has to participate in the plenary session. But I would like to give the floor to Ms. Angelina Saranovic from Montenegro. Ms. Saranovic, you posted comments in the chat. I would like to give you the floor, please.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And thank you.
Sorry, we cannot hear you well. If you can speak a little bit closer to the microphone, please.
Is it okay now?
Not really.
No, but
now it's better. Now it's better. Now it's better. Thank you.
My microphone is on, but my connection is very poor. So I'm going to switch my video. Maybe it will be better then.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe turning off the video will help.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for organizing such an important seminar. And let me give a very quick view on the situation in Montenegro. I am Secretary of Gender Equality Committee in the Parliament of Montenegro. And despite progress in Montenegro comparing to 95, many challenges remain, including persistent gender-based violence in general and violence against women in politics. The second one is economic inequalities. Third is underrepresentation, because only 27% of MPs are women. And women are underrepresented in leadership roles too. Of course, there is a lack of political will, because inconsistency in political commitment to gender equality can hinder the process of gender equality. There are some cultural barriers. Deep-rooted cultural norms often restrict women's role in politics and decision-making. So as lack of resources, insufficient funding for gender equality initiatives, and I find important existence of quotas regarding women in the parliament. In the Parliament of Montenegro exists a committee for comprehensive electoral reform.
I'm sorry, apologize, Ms. Saranovic. We can't hear you well. We would be grateful if you could post your comments in the chat so that everyone could see it, because the audio is not working well.
Okay. Oh, thank you anyway.
Thank you very much, and apologies. Unless there is another request for the floor, then I could give the floor back to Saša. If there is any other members of parliament who would wish to take the floor now, you can indicate by raising your hand. Or if not, we can give it back to Saša. I don't see any requests. Yeah, I think, Saša, you can have the floor back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you again for supporting the moderation and taking the lead on coordinating the requests from the dear parliamentarians. Also, dear Angelina, sorry for the connection. It just seems there's an issue with your microphone, but we saw your comments in the chat and the identified challenges that you have listed here when it comes to pertaining challenges in Montenegro in order to achieve full and meaningful equality of women and men, but also to your comment when it comes to legislative reform on women's political participation and the Committee on the Comprehensive Electoral Reform, where there are certain discussions on advancing the legislative quota. So thank you also for your written contribution. Before we go to the closing remarks, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give the floor back to Rachel and Zeina, maybe for some concluding remarks, short or longer ones. I mean, we have still some time, but maybe some short key messages for our dear parliamentarians as a reminder, as a call for commitment to the Beijing review and to the action from the parliamentary side on the anniversary of the 13th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. So maybe Rachel, dear Rachel, we can go first with you and then move on with Zeina.
Of course. Thank you so much, Saša. Thank you, everyone, for the rich discussion and insights. I think we see that there are a lot of commonalities in terms of both the achievements as well as the challenges across the region. So I guess in concluding remarks, as we approach the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and the Platform for Action, we're reminded also by this discussion of its enduring significance as the most comprehensive blueprint for achieving gender equality. We see how over the last 30 years, the global community has made strides towards the goals which are articulated in Beijing, with incremental progress observed at the same time. But as the data clearly shows, these gains, they're neither sufficient nor are they irreversible. So this anniversary, it's not merely an occasion for reflection, but it's also a critical juncture to act with renewed urgency. The lessons from the last 30 years have shown that targeted investments in gender equality can yield transformative results. Yet at this point in time, without deliberate and sustained action, this progress risks stagnation or reversal. The challenges that we're facing, as we heard from so many people today, from violence against women in politics to this pushback on gender equality across the region, these demand coordinated and bold responses. The political declaration that I mentioned earlier, this is going to be adopted at the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. This really offers us a unique opportunity, and it's a unique opportunity for member states to recommit on the principles of Beijing and to chart an ambitious course forward. Towards this, OSCE participating states and their parliaments have a critical role to play in ensuring that this political declaration, that it is bold, that it is forward-looking, and that most importantly, it's backed by tangible commitments. So by unlocking this political will, scaling up the financing, and embracing accountability, member states can catalyze transformative change and deliver on the promise of gender equality. We extend our deepest gratitude to parliamentarians for their leadership, dedication, and critical role in advancing the Beijing commitments, both within their legislatures as well as on the global stage. And I guess together, in closing, in 2025, let us seize this moment to act with purpose and to act with solidarity. The future we want, it's within our grasp. It's an equal world for all. It's our collective responsibility to make it happen. Let us work together to ensure that the Beijing Platform for Action fulfills its transformative promise, delivering results that endure for the generations to come. Again, Saša, honorable assembled members of Parliament, representatives, experts, friends, thank you so much for inviting UN Women from the Europe and Central Asia region to be part of this discussion today.
Thank you, Rachel. We continue our partnership, our common path. Dear Zeina, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you, Saša. I think I'm going to put the spotlight inside parliaments, and I think the best way to counter stagnation, to counter setbacks and pushbacks, is to be even more bold, more ambitious, more committed than before. And I think we already have many commitments made. Let's turn attention to their implementation. Saša, thank you for the recommendations you've included in your presentation. They are so much in line with the IPU Kigali Declaration on what needs to be done inside parliaments within their transformation path towards more transformative action for gender equality could be a way out. I'm not going to repeat everything you said, but definitely specific mechanism in parliament, the committees, the engagement of men, internal quotas, political parties, gender mainstreaming internally, including on resources and legal audits and oversight audits and budget audits from a gender perspective would all help out immensely. I will end on two additional points so that we always remain more ambitious, as a resistance act. And actually it's three. The first one is the 50-50 representation. That's, as you said, our, the new, the paradigm now, not less. Diversity among women, which is another hugely important steps to be taken, both to enhance women's political participation, but also to enhance inclusivity and diversity and democracy. And last one is equal care inside parliaments, as an internal policy, internal mechanisms, internal measures that can shift also the paradigm and make it more understandable for both men and women what gender roles are, what they mean. We can hope that a new generation of parliamentarians is bringing with it inside parliaments a new way of seeing gender equality, and maybe offering parliaments as caring institutions for men and women members in their diversity of roles, and correcting the current imbalances that we still have in families and in society, from parliament to other institutions, would really make a huge step towards gender equality in practice and in action. I'll stop on that, ambitious, but hopefully at reach recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zeina. Thank you a lot for these very important points. Also with the IPU, we continue our common path. We are looking forward for working together, and are looking forward to your session also in Uzbekistan, and to hopefully contributing also from our side. So this path that we are on will continue together. From my side, only one sentence. I would really wish, as you have seen from the presentation, that you consider innovating and trying things differently. in this year of 30 years of Beijing, of the Beijing Platform for Action. And you can do it, of course, within your own context and the context of your parliamentary actions. So maybe not to do things as we have done always, but maybe to do them differently in this year. I will stop here. I will thank you all for your contributions, and we are now moving into the closing remarks. Our dear Dr. Hedy Fry has stood up very early in Vancouver to participate in this webinar. It is not easy to find a common time for Vancouver and Bishkek, or approximately, that are the contacts that I had in the last few weeks, and colleagues in Bishkek were saying it's so late, and I was like, but imagine how early it is in Vancouver at 5 in the morning. So dear colleagues, apologies, that the time zone might not be always the best, but we are giving our best. That Dr. Hedy Fry gave her best. She is today with us through the entire seminar as the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly's Special Representative of Gender Issues. Dr. Fry, the floor is yours for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Saša, and good morning, everyone, I will say from here, but it'll be good afternoon to you wherever you are. We're used to this in Canada, in Vancouver. If the parliament is having a meeting, we are 3 hours behind, so we always have to catch up as well. As the second largest country in the world, we're used to the time differences. But I wanted to thank you for asking me to come to this event today, because I think it's really an important one. I mean, there was a great baseball player in the United States who used to say, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know when you get there? And I think one of the most important things we have to do is continue to assess and reassess, to continue to do our statistical data, collect information, and collect data. Those are very important. I wanted to thank the three panelists for their very important input, but what I noted was that you all had probably the same things to say, that we did make progress in some areas, mostly in the participation of women in political parliaments, but actually I think you also said that in itself is being threatened now because of increased violence against female and women parliamentarians. And I think that may very well see us regressing in that area as well. I think I think the new ODIHR director, Ms. Telalian, I think you have made some important commitments to make sure that ODIHR continues to be at the front end of making change and of creating tools for us as parliamentarians. It's important to have ideas about where we want to go, but if we don't have the tools to do it, to get there, then basically we cannot ever get there. And so it's important that ODIHR continues to supply those tools for us. I think it's also important to see that what we heard in the United Nations is saying the same thing, and that we are sliding. We're moving forward and we're sliding. And I think for me, out of all of the presentations, including all of the great data, the great information, a lot of the looking at how other countries are faring, I wanted to say we should not say we're doing well here at the OSCE, but we have seen some progress. We've seen a lot more women. We've seen the tripling of women in our parliamentary parliaments. We're 34.7. I remember in Beijing when we were all saying, because I was in Beijing, I'm that old, we were saying that we have to look at 30% as that magic critical mass. Well, we've gone over that magic critical mass at the OSCE with about 34.7 across the board. But I don't know that we have seen that make a great deal of difference in that we're seeing a lot of the change pushing back the gains that were made. So I think that it's important to note that, but I also want to note that as we heard, that about 27 OSCE nations adopted gender legislation and gender quotas. And I think, as Saša pointed out, that kind of temporary move to adopt quotas is a good thing. What I wanted to say is, though, that the message out of today's meeting is that we should be worried. I listened to my friend Daniela Derrida, who's always very, very good at pushing us back into practicality. What do we do? Where do we go? How do we do it? And as she said, we don't need gender equality because it's a nice thing. We need it because it's a necessity. If we're ever going to have democracy continue to evolve and be strong in our countries, having the participation of both gender is important. And for me, the participation of women or gender equal participation in the economic, social, political, and cultural lives of our nation is key to democracy. And I think some of the ideas that I heard for doing that from Saša is like getting men involved, building alliances, but also remembering that gender is not just about women. It's about ensuring that we do not leave young men behind so that they feel left out and they feel that they do not. It's about gender equality, which is about the reality of the lives of men and women in our countries. But I am concerned that we have actually regressed so much in so many areas around the world. And that regression means that democracy is at risk. And there should be concern to many of us in the OSCE, where we're committed to fostering democracy in our nation states. And I think we need to really, we look at the data, we look at what's going on, but it's not good enough to look at it and say, oh my gosh, things are going badly or things are going well. We need to talk about what we do to change it. And again, Daniela pushed us back into that space and said, so what are you going to do? And I think it's really important for us to note the challenges we face globally, and they're increasing. The violence against women the gains we've made in women parliamentarians is going to be actually pushed back because of violence against women parliamentarians. Women in my country do not want to run anymore. They're scared. Many women parliamentarians are not running again for election because they feel threatened. And they're being threatened severely online in social media. We need to think about social media's role in making women afraid. They have been threatened with rape. Their families have been threatened. We see that with women journalists who are now, we know that about 20% of them are no longer reporting on everything. They're being careful about what they report and in case their threats increase. So those are two main pillars of democracy: equal participation in political life, and secondly, a free press. And if we're going to curtail both of those, for me, this whole issue about what happens 30 years after Beijing is not about whether we got where we were going to go. It's what does it mean when we don't get there? What does it mean for our future as a world, as a globe, where we're seeing a lot of merging right-wing autocracies moving forward? We talked about a lot of things: the political life of women, the economic life of women, as we heard clearly from many of the panelists and others who talked about it. Women have to get education. Women have to be trained in the world of the 21st century work. So STEM, some of the new world of environmental green economies, we've got to get women trained in that. And that's not happening in a lot of instances. Women are not getting the training they need. We noticed too that in terms of the fact that conflict is a major global challenge, all the conflicts are preventing women from participating fully in the economic, social, political, and cultural life of their country. In fact, many women are now refugees and migrants, as Daniela would know, homeless with no place to go, no place to even call home, never mind to participate in anything. And so I think those are the things we need to worry about. We need to also worry about the fact that civil society is not being supported anymore. When you have organizations that support gender equality not getting funding from their governments, it doesn't really matter if that government decides they've got legislation. When they're denying funding to civil society to do the important advocacy work on the ground checking that things are happening to make change, then we're not getting anywhere. And I visited a lot of civil society, some countries in the region of the OSCE in the last couple of years, and I was appalled and concerned that they're not being supported. In fact, many of them are being denied any funding. They're closing down, and if they get funding from organizations like the United Nations or the European Parliament, they're being told that they're now being funded by foreign agents, and therefore they're a threat to their countries. These are realities. And we can, we need to look at those realities and we need to make some very strong decisions about how we're going to do what Saša said. We've got to form alliances, not only within our countries, we've got to form alliances across the nations. We've got to come together, not just as women, but men who are ready to work with us to make this happen, because it is important, as Daniela said, it's a necessity for democracy to flourish. I know that you look at the economic life, many women cannot participate in paid work. A, they don't have the training, but B, they don't have childcare. Women are tied down to staying home because they've got to look after their kids. And we can talk about legislative changes. If legislative changes are not looking at ways of removing the systemic barrier that many women face to getting into the paid workforce, we're not going to get women getting economic participation fully realized either. And I think the recognition, again, I'm going back to Daniela's very practical statement, this is necessary. How are nation states going to be competitive if you do not have 50% of your population not able to go into the paid workforce, not able to be productive? You don't have competitiveness if that doesn't happen. So it's in the best interest for men and women in nation states to say, we got to get as much of our workforce working so we can be competitive and we can be productive as nation states. It's the economy of that whole nation that's at risk here when we don't do that. And I think these are some of the things, again, that if we talk about the necessity for this, we will really talk about why it is concerning, deeply concerning, that this pushback, this regression is occurring for us. And I think, once again, we've talked about women in social, economic, political life, but what about 1325? It's never been really realized. A small handful of countries are making sure that that is happening. And so we still have 1325 not realized. Women in peace and security is just not happening either. And so it's really, really important for us to take strong action, come together, build real changes. There are legislation passed in many countries, but legislation alone is not enough. De jure equality is not enough unless we have de facto equality. So you could have massive amounts of legislation saying women can and should and are able to, but if it's not really reaching reality and it's not happening on the ground in reality, then it's really useless. It's just talk. And having been a minister and having of women is equality in Canada and having gone to a lot of these Beijing pluses, +5, +10, etc., I've listened to countries say, oh, we are really following the plan of action. And they haven't really. They have regressed. Everyone stands up and makes a really nice speech about how well they're doing in their nation and how well their country is doing this, but it's not being realized. And I really think that we need to be concerned about this. I think for me, it's really important for us to look at best practices. We've heard of some best practices. We have many nations in the region of the OSCE that have been doing good things. We have the ODIHR as a source of resource for us to give us the tools we need. What we need to do now is in our own parliaments as parliamentarians, we need to step up to the plate. And I'm speaking to the men at this meeting and to the women. We've got to step up to the plate for the sake of the economic prosperity and the democracy and the social life of our own countries. Because when women are afraid, not just in parliament, not just as journalists, but domestic violence, societal violence is increasing against women. Women are afraid. And when we don't want to talk about the fact that given that the world has become so globalized that many of our countries are no longer heterogeneous countries, homogeneous countries now become very diverse. And so we need to think about what we used to call intersectionality. Women whose sexual orientation, lesbians. We have to look at what we're doing for women of different races, indigenous women, women in different religions, women who in the OSCE we call minority groups. We've got to look at that. How do we get there? I would like to suggest that the first thing we do is commit in our parliaments, not only to legislation, but we commit to a very practical thing, as Daniela would say. We commit to getting data gathering, get our statistical organizations, institutions, as Saša talked about changing our institutions, get our statistics in our national statistics to look at sex disaggregated data and to look at gender-based analysis in every department in our governments. Is every department analyzing their legislation? Is every department looking at their policies and seeing how it impacts gender in its reality? And until they do that, we're never going to know where we're going. We're never going to know whether we get there. We're never going to be able to say anything except to say, oh, we're doing well, thank you. We agree with gender equality. That has to change. I think the world and democracy is at risk right now. For many of us, we're watching incumbent governments being removed from our office and autocratic governments coming back in. And the first thing for many autocratic governments is to deny gender equality and to deny systemic discrimination. And I think we need to be able to look at how we stop that. We are parliamentarians. We need to stop it. We need to stop it now. We need to step up to the plate and commit to doing these things. In Canada, I like to think that we are one of the few nations, like a lot of the Scandinavian nations, that have achieved a fair amount of gender equality. But we are seeing it being pushed back right now. The sexual and reproductive rights of women in North America are at risk right now. When we've seen laws in the United States that are denying women the right to contraception, denying women the right to safe and secure abortion if they need it, denying young people the right to education about sexuality so that they can make good choices. These things are at risk. And I really want to thank ODIHR, and I want to thank the OSCE EPA for coming together to bring this group together.
Thank you,
I want
Dr. Fry.
all of us, before we leave, to commit. We're going to go back and we're going to fight and we're going to be heard and we're going to stand up. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for these encouraging words. Thank you for your time and for your contribution. We indeed need to step up and really recommit all of us to our common path that we have been on for the last years, and hopefully we will be on in the next years. Finally, a very short contribution also as a closing remark from ODIHR side. Julia Netesova, Chief of Democratic Governance and Gender Unit within ODIHR. Dear Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Saša. Dear colleagues, I think I am, like all of you, smitten by passionate address by Dr. Hedy Fry, whom I would like to thank for her commitment, dedication, enthusiasm, and energy. Dr. Hedy Fry is our long-standing ally who also contributed with her testimony to the latest Violence Against Women in Politics Toolkit. I also appreciated her historical reflection back on Beijing, how our understanding really changed over the years. And I think this also correlates well with Saša's statement. We do need to innovate because things change. Our understanding of concepts and solutions also changes. We for sure have made mistakes, but this was never done before. And my short reflection from this fantastic webinar is that, well, first of all, our parliaments are really blessed to be able to use expertise from UN Women, from IPU and OSCE ODIHR. What an amount of knowledge was presented today. Second, definitely a reflection about engaging positively men in work and gender equality in political life. Participation of men as allies, advocates, and leaders is essential to dismantle the existing patriarchy and power structures that perpetuate inequality. We work in ODIHR on this topic. We'll be releasing Sarajevo principles very soon. The principles will be looking into how to engage male politicians. Colleagues, you will be surprised how and we discovered a new set of barriers that male politicians face when they want to work on gender equality. Very often they are being punished and penalized and ridiculed for wanting to work on gender equality. And sometimes they feel they don't have a right to engage. This is really another box we need to open and work on this. Second reflection from my side, and this is coming from an organization point of view. I'm not an MP, never been and probably never will be, but I work for an organization that works with MPs. So I would like to appeal to the parliaments to step up across their three core functions, and not just representation where we see progress, but also lawmaking and oversight. Of course, there are governmental bodies that are very important for policy implementations, but parliaments are the heart of each democracy. Doesn't matter if it's parliamentary, presidential, mixed system, parliament is always there representing the citizens. So please, dear MPs, be reminded about the enormous possibilities you actually have in your hands, not only with the rules you have, but with the possibility to change your rules, including rules of procedure, and getting more powers and more functions. And the third reflection is absolutely the need to respond to the gender equality backsliding, and I'm talking about parliaments. Parliaments also have a role here to respond to the backsliding that is rooted in misinformation, regressive ideologies that poses a real and significant barrier to progress and is a huge threat. So parliaments, we are calling on you through parliamentary debates, legislation amendments, public engagements, especially with citizens and civil society organizations and women's movements, to please take up on this challenge. Don't be passive, because this is already happening for the last, I don't know, probably for sure a decade. And now it's coming to shape all over OSCE space. I will close here and also thank, of course, our fantastic speakers today, our participants who found time to be with us, and to our dear partners from OSCE. Thank you so much for your kind support in facilitating this webinar and making it come true. And also thanks a lot to my own team, to Saša and Thibaut. Thank you so much for kicking off this year with this webinar, putting this topic on the table, and for giving us energy and new ideas and new dreams. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia, also for your very empowering words. Dear participants, I sincerely hope this has been an event that is useful and interesting. We from the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and its International Secretariat, and from the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, stay at your disposal to support your parliaments to further advance our common gender equality agenda. With this, we can consider the meeting closed and wish you a wonderful rest of the year.